The Ultra 64 rocked my world long before they changed its name, and even though it had a full 5-year life cycle, I quickly gave up on the console because the games got really expensive. But of the ones I did get, I put together one heck of a top 10 that is definitely not like anyone else's. I am the Game Collector, and this is Second Opinion Games, and today we look at my top 10 Nintendo 64 games.
Second Opinion Games.
Number 10, NFL Blitz. This is definitely how I like my football. In a day and age where you could get a penalty just for walking up and tickling a quarterback, this would blow people's minds because it's hard hitting. You pick them up and body slam them, for God's sakes. You could hit people after they're already unconscious on the ground by drop kicking them and it's more like a wrestling game than a football game. 30 yards for a first down? What the heck is really even going on here? The passes are insanely fast, and so is the scoring. So if you want the best over-the-top football game that ever was, well, maybe you should play it on Nintendo 64 rather than buying some crappy arcade cabinet where they completely ruin the game for everyone. Ugh. Number 9, Battle Tanks. Can you think of anything cooler than tanks? Giant hunks of steel filled with explosives, destroying everything in sight, picking up nuclear bombs to fire out of them to level a city. Everything is destructible here, or at least almost everything, and you even have to use a little bit of strategy, not much, but just a little bit, in order to clear the levels of the main mission. Of course, most of the time I spent playing with my friends 4-player split screen with battle tanks, and oh my god, is it ever get crazy. My only real complaint is that the screen's a little dark most of the time. However, you do get to score lots of hot chicks because the whole storyline here is just collecting hot babes, and I really appreciate that one. I can just imagine this one guy in a tank with like 20 hot chicks. Anyway, that's a story for another video altogether. Probably not on YouTube though, but Battle Tanks is definitely my multiplayer game of choice, not GoldenEye, because that game did not hold up well at all. Number 8, Army Men Air Combat. Now, I did think of a vehicle that's a little bit better than tanks, and that's helicopters. Helicopters are more graceful, and they're also filled with high explosives, the same as tanks, so I really got to give it up to helicopters. Also, I really like flying in video games, and if you really like the Strike series, well, it basically took everything that makes that series more fun and just shoved it into a cutesy kitty game because you're just destroying little tiny army men. Take that for being a different color other than us, you evil tan army. I like just destroying everything in this game. The missions are all very simple and straightforward, and that's what I like playing it. I don't like trying to figure out how to control my thing. I just like to be able to pick it up in my hands and immediately know what the heck I'm doing. You still have a winch like the Strike series, so you can pick up boulders, move them out of the way, or even crush your foes with them. It's a shame you don't have infinite missiles, but picking up reloads is never too far away. And if you're into helicopters as much as I am, then you're gonna love this one. Number 7, Yoshi Story. Yoshi is like the cutest character ever, and this is probably the cutest game with him in it. Everything is adorable, down from the music to just eating fruit. Heck, even eating your enemies alive and throwing their carcasses somehow is ridiculously cute. The backgrounds are gorgeous, and even though most people say this is a ridiculously simple game, I have to agree on them with that. It's still a ton of fun. 2D action platformers are definitely my jam, and it's something that the PlayStation 1 didn't have a whole lot of. So Nintendo is darn right to capitalize on their mistakes with coming up with Yoshi in the cutest game possible. Heck, even the boss battles are cute. How the heck did they do that? Number 6, Wayne Gretzky's 3D hockey. Unlike football, hockey is still played by men that hit really hard. Heck, they're allowed to fight with their fists on the ice, and the only punishment they get is just 5 minutes in a box. In this game, I don't think they get punished at all. There's also no offsides unless you turn that on, or any of the penalties for that matter. You could leave them completely off, which makes the game quite a bit faster. Also, what makes it faster is the fact that it's just brutal. Now you just slam into people as hard as you can, every chance you get, being able to juke out the goalie and launch that puck in for a quick score. One-timers are ridiculously fast. The controls are simple, but not too simple, because it's one of those games that's easy to learn, hard to master. And master is something you're definitely going to want to do. Now, even though it's just 3-on-3 arcade action, it still feels like a full-fledged hockey experience. Even if sometimes you do set the net on fire with your crazy trick shots, it never feels too exaggerated. Nothing says get your man card back more than beating up someone in a hockey game. Number 5, Iggy's Wrecking Balls. In what could be the most unlikely racing game that I ever fell in love with, you play as Mad Balls. You know those things from the 80s that were made out of foam that looked all disgusting? And you race with really short courses. Of course, you have to make laps, and the courses get incredibly complex. Now, luckily, not only can you jump, but you could also use your tongue to pull you up in the air. You could also use your tongue to beat up the other characters on the screen. So this ends up being a terrific party game. Just tongue lashing your friends has never been so much fun, even though that does sound a little dirty now that I said it out loud and probably should edit that part out. Well, I'm leaving it in because this is a ton of fun. It is definitely the hidden gem of the Nintendo 64. People that missed out on this one, man, you should really go back and give it a try because it is exhilarating. Getting into these ridiculously close racing matches. Again, most of the greatest Nintendo games were the ones that were easy to learn and hard to master. And Iggy's Wrecking Ball is definitely one of the best racers I think I ever played, even if the concept is totally ridiculous. Number 4, Kirby 64 and the Crystal Shards. Boy, Nintendo really likes to embrace that whole cuteness thing. And even though this game is ridiculously easy and probably meant for kids, it is also ridiculously fun for adults too. And it's mostly because you get to swallow your enemies whole and gain their powers. But that's just not it. Because you can also swallow multiple people's powers and match them together in unique ways, which means that even though you might like a certain power-up, you cannot wait to see what another power-up you can make could possibly be. Most of the time, I just like sticking with the boomerangs and anything else because I like projectile attacks, because some of these feel completely worthless. Why would you want to just turn into a snowman that blows himself up, and how is that even a thing? They were just thinking outside the box in all types of creative ways when they put this game together, and that's what I really enjoy about it. On top of the great 2.5D platforming experience, and even though I can never figure out those little mini games after each level, I always keep coming back to it because it's just so darn cool to craft new weapons for killing things. Number 3, Star Soldier Vanishing Earth. Now, the Nintendo 64 didn't get many shmups, well, pretty much none. Just this one and maybe another one that was released only in Japan. But this is clearly the better shmup, and that's why it deserves to be on this list. Also, it's actually good. You could play as 3 different ships, all with their own unique attributes, but they're all really powerful. There's also 3 levels of difficulty, so if you are not terrible at these games like me, you can play on a harder level. You have a screen-clearing bomb that blows a whole lot of stuff up, or maybe you could just unleash some extra missiles that's judged by a different bar altogether. But the coolest thing about this game is that there's hidden levels in here, and they're hidden ridiculously well to the point where no normal person would ever find them. So you better turn to the internet and look up how to do it, and then you'll be scratching your head because they went way too devious with unlocking these levels. Which means that this game is all about the journey, not the destination. Just playing and replaying this game is where all the joy comes from, not truly from just beating it, which is a unique feature in shooters like this. Number 2, Super Mario 64. This game wrote the book on how to do 3D platformers. It also wrote the book on how to control the camera properly in a 3D game. Even though there's one analog stick here, everything feels natural. I think they literally made this game around that stupid controller that I really should have hated, but because this taught me how to use it with all the precision of a master gamer, I completely started to tolerate it after not very long of playing and actually doing things that I never thought I could ever see Mario do. The whole open world aspect here completely shattered my brain on exactly what a Mario game should be. From here on out, I really thought I was done with 2D Mario, only to be completely wrong, because Mario can be great in 3D and 2D alike. And this game proved that any character could flawlessly move into a 3D realm and make a great game. And then when other people tried it, they failed because no one can out Mario. Number 1, Mario Kart 64, in what could be the very best multiplayer racing experience of all times. You know what? The single player isn't too bad either. Racing in ridiculously tight races, assuming you're not going to take those really cheap shortcuts that we had a house rule no one was allowed to take. I'm not talking about the shortcuts that are skill-based, you know, the ones that you have to use a speeder just right to jump through a little tiny hole in the wall. No, you can take those because it's risk versus reward. I'm talking about the ones that let you skip half of the map. Unfortunately, some of those are in the game, but as long as you set down the law that your controller will be unplugged if you do any of that crappery, well, then you will find this might be the best Mario Kart racing experience ever. Every single track is iconic, and I could never get enough of it. Playing with my friends, things got violent at times because that's just what Mario Kart does. It tends to bring out the worst in anyone that you're next to. And my god, the hatred of those blue turtle shells still give me nightmares. And also sometimes you could do a little off-roading to find a couple of little fun things here and there. I really do think this is the most fun I ever had with Nintendo 64, and it deserves to be number 1 on this list. But I wanted to talk about one more game on this list. The only game that I bought just for the opening theme music and not to play it at all because it's just kind of a garbage game. So playing us out is one of the best title songs of all times. But of course, that's just my opinion. Thanks for watching.
About now it's time to rock with the biggity buck bumper. What about now it's time to rock with the biggity buck bumper. Bum to the bump to the bump to the bass. Bum to the bump to the bumper. Bum to the bump to the bump to the bass. Bum to the bump to the bumper. Bum to the bump to the bump to the bass. Bum to the bump to the bumper. Bum to the bump to the bump to the bass. Bum to the bump to the bumper.
Hopefully you guys enjoyed this list. I had a great time making it, and no, I didn't put Smash Brothers on this list because I was already playing the Dreamcast when that came out, and I do really like every single game I talked about today. These games were like $70 when they launched, and it was much cheaper to buy PlayStation games than Nintendo 64 ones. So when I end up completing my Nintendo 64 collection, I really didn't care for some of those other games. I played Conker's Bad Fur Day more on the Xbox than I did the Nintendo 64. I know a lot of people really hate that, but unfortunately that's what I did. Also, trying to go back to that awful Trident controller sometimes would just be too frustrating and take away a lot of the fun factor. I did later get one of those other controllers that are much better, and I do kind of like the Nintendo 64, but sometimes I think the PlayStation and even the Sega Saturn really outshined them. But if you disagree on me with that, let me know in the comments down below. Also, let me know what your favorite Nintendo 64 game was. And until later, I will see you again, guys.